Well, the world has still gone nutty, buddy, even downright cruddy, buddy. Wish I missed the past, buddy, but there's still Buddycast. No, don't be nutty, go meet everybody here on Buddycast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and host of Buddycast, Nick Sorensen.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of everybody's favorite show, Buddycast. I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Joining me today is a very special buddy, my new buddy, Travis Chappell. How you doing, Travis?
Hey, what's happening, man? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a buddy on Buddycast. Travis,
yes, sir.
You're a marketer, you're a podcaster, you run a great website. Tell me about your journey into marketing.
Yeah, dude. Honestly, I was kind of opposed to it for quite a while. I just didn't want to like be a part of that culture very much. So I just put up almost like a wall, and I was just like, I don't want to be a marketer. I just want to have my podcast and that's it. And then the more I started getting into it, the more I was like, I really got to learn this marketing thing because, like you can have pretty good stuff, but if you don't get anybody to ever hear about it, then what's the point of having good stuff? So I kind of reluctantly jumped into that world, maybe 2-3 years back. And yeah, just started realizing that I didn't have to be necessarily the person like pulling all the levers, like if you're in marketing, you don't have to be the landing page designer. If you're in marketing, you don't have to be the copywriter. If you're in marketing, you don't have to be the person to edit the VSL or whatever. You can be really good at one thing or two things and then hire other people to do everything else. So I studied more like high level psychology. Just started reading a bunch of books on why people do things, which really to me is the study of, because psychology is essentially the study of marketing from a philosophical perspective. And so I started doing that more. And then I started kind of getting to know more people that were kind of the lever pullers, the people who knew how to tactically apply some of the broader strategy that I would bring to the table. But yeah, so it was kind of a long road of being resistant at first and then kind of eventually giving in and realizing that it's kind of part of the game if you really want to be able to have a successful business.
Wonderful. And what about your interest in podcasting?
That was just like purely from a curiosity standpoint. I listened to a lot of podcasts, so I after a while of listening to them, I was like, I think I could do this. Like this would be fun anyway, even if I wasn't good at it or whatever, I feel like it would at least be a good use of my time. So I launched into the podcasting space actually first before I did anything in marketing.
Nice. And what podcast do you like to listen to?
It kind of is all over the place, just depending on what I'm going through in life at that time, So I've done different shows and through different phases. It started off like the first shows I listened to were like Bigger Pockets podcast, real estate investing show, Entrepreneurs on Fire, John Lee Dumas, Jordan Harbinger show, Lewis Howes a little bit, Tim Ferriss a little bit. And then it kind of just evolved from there, found other people, started listening to some other shows, picked up some other ones along the way. And now it's more kind of Joe Rogan and listening to a fair amount of Chris Williamson lately with Modern Wisdom. Listen to, let's see, there was like one or two others in my lineup that I wanted to make sure I give shout outs to, but they're kind of blanking on them. Let me pull up my Spotify here. I'll tell you exactly what they are. Uh-huh. Mark Manson just launched the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck podcast, which I really like him and his book and his writing and stuff. So I've started listening to his podcast as well. He just relaunched this past weekend with Theo Vaughn. I listened to that one, just kind of like I pick and choose the ones I listen to on that one. I've listened to a little bit of Scott Galloway recently. If I'm looking for nutrition and like health advice, I'm listening to Max Lugavere. If I'm like listening to something comedy wise, Conan O'Brien is really good. So yeah, those are some of the ones in my lineup.
Nice. And on top of podcasting, you decided to build a website for podcasters called Castillo. Could you tell our viewers about Castillo?
Yeah, so this was a few years ago that I started it. It was basically kind of scratching my own itch. It was just a marketplace to find good quality guests for your podcast. And I was always trying to level up the people I was talking to, and I couldn't find like a resource or solution for people that were kind of raising their hands and saying like, I want to be a guest on podcast. So yeah, we ended up building it. So we launched Guestio 2-3 years ago now, and now it's kind of turned actually more into like a managed services agency where we represent people and we get them booked on podcasts. So kind of almost the reverse of it, where we don't do as many of like shows booking guests. We do more like guest booking shows, because that kind of ended up being more of the hole in the market that needed to be filled. So yeah, that's what Guestio does now. We it's bulk of it as our concierge service. We do white label or white glove services for authors, experts, speakers, people who want to get booked on podcasts, and then we represent them. We go get them booked on shows.
Nice. Who are some notable people that are on Guestio? Like, who are some notable people that, like, if I were to reach out to
have on your show?
Yeah.
So, it's been a while since I looked at the catalog and all the new people that are on there, but off the top of my head, there's people like James Lawrence, who his nickname is the Iron Cowboy. He's famous for doing an Ironman a day for 100 days in a row. So 100 Ironmans, 100 days in a row, which is insane. So he's kind of, he's a famous speaker and does a lot of corporate gigs and stuff, obviously on like mental resilience and persistence and things like that. To do one Ironman is insane. To do one Ironman a day for 100 days straight is lunacy. It's madness, So he's on there, I think $500 or $1,000 or something. You can have him on your show, and he charges way more than that for, obviously for his keynote speeches and things that he does. So he's on there. Matt Barnes, who's a really well-known sports podcast host, and he's a former NBA champion with the Golden State Warriors. He's on there. Sean Merriman is a Pro Bowl football player who was on the Chargers. He's on there. And then there's countless business people who've built 9-figure companies, 8-figure companies, 7-figure companies, lots of speakers, experts, podcasters that are on there. Jordan Harbinger on there, John Lee Dumas on there. So yeah, you can find some gems. You can find some gems on Guestio, people that you wouldn't expect to be on there for as little as they're charging.
Nice. So who are some people that you've interacted with on the website?
That I've interviewed because of Guestio?
Yeah.
So let's see. It's actually more kind of the opposite for me, is more like I reach out, I interview somebody, and then they get on Guestio. So I actually don't really use it for as much reach out for my own show, because I reach out personally and then get them booked. And then I say, hey, you want to do more interviews? And they say, yeah. And then I get them to create an account on Guestio. So, and then the ones that I have done through Guestio have been like, hey, I will get you on my show, but I also want you to have an account on Guestio. So if we can make that happen, then we'll do the show. You know what I mean? So, so yeah, a little bit of both, but mostly it's like through my own cold personal efforts that I do that, which is the reason that Guestio exists, is that most people will not do the work that I do or don't know how to do the work that I do in terms of actually being able to get in touch with these really difficult to reach people. So Guestio just makes it easier for them to reach out to those people. But I've just been doing it for so long, that's kind of second nature to me. So it's a lot easier for me to land those. And then I kind of put them on Guestio after I interview them.
Nice. And who are some of those notable interviews?
Yeah, I guess Doug, all the people I just mentioned, plus like Doug Allen, who's the producer of Entourage, he's on there. Some people that I've interviewed that are not on Guestio would be like Shaq, Dane Cook, Rob Deerdeck. But yeah, hundreds.
Mm-hmm. Then tell us about your show. Tell our viewers about your show.
Yeah, it's called Travis Makes Friends. It's basically a personal development self-help show. What we say is like it's self-help without the BS. So we're not super into the kind of guru. Like I'm not trying to be a guru. I'm not trying to be your guide, your spiritual guide or whatever. It's just more like I like having conversations with really interesting people who figured out a lot of things about life. And I try to have those conversations in a way that allows the listener to plug into their story, see themselves a little bit in that person, get a little bit inspired to take some action. And then once they're kind of inspired and motivated to take action, we actually give some practical, tactical tips and tricks on what to do once you feel like you can actually go do the thing that they've done. So it's really just about finding really interesting people who've done cool things, having good conversations with them, and distilling their best practices back to the audience.
Nice. Where can we find your show?
Anywhere where shows are found. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere, YouTube now. We took a long time to get on YouTube, unfortunately. Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, it sounds like smoke alarms going on. Hang on one second.
Take your time. For all my buddies out there, this is my buddy Travis Chappell. Apologies for the interruption. He's got a little small situation going on. But in the meantime, I see we have comments from my buddy Luca. How you doing, Luca?
Man, sorry about that. That has never happened before. Hopefully it doesn't happen again.
Just glad the house isn't burning down or anything, you know?
Yeah, right. Right.
So,
usually that just happens when I'm cooking, but you know, every
you
once
and
in a
me
while,
both.
I guess. Yeah.
You and me both, mate. That's why I married a chef.
Nice. Smart move. Smart move.
Exactly. So, that was us. Speaking of chef, thought that was us for a second.
Nice.
I promise you, honey, I'm not trying to cook. I promise you I'm doing Buddycast. And I promise you I didn't put something on the stove, go do Buddycast, and then realized, is something burning?
Yeah, right, exactly. That would be a good hint.
Mm-hmm. So from your time with podcasting, what has it taught you the most? Give us a second, buddy.
So from my time with podcasting, what has it taught me the most?
Yes.
Yeah. So the biggest reason that I've done the show for as long as I've done it is just the relationships that I've been able to build from it. And I wouldn't say that it's like one thing that it's taught me. It's just the thing that it's taught me is how much it can teach me, if that makes sense. Like the podcast is I've not only just learned from people that I've had on the show, but it's also been my accountability partner to continue learning and continue self-education, because I feel kind of this sense of duty, like obligation to the people that listen to the show, to give them as like the best and most accurate information that I possibly can. So I, go like this year, I didn't go through as many books as I wanted to, but I've probably gone through like 20 or 25 books this year. I would not do that if I didn't have the show and the audience.
Mm-hmm. Everything going okay over there? Everything good? Everything?
Yeah, everything's fine. It seems that way. It must just be a lot of smoke in the kitchen or something. I think my wife's cooking dinner right now, so there's probably just a lot of smoke, and then it sets off all the other alarms when it's going down. But I assume she would call me if I needed to get out of here. So
yeah. If not, I'm very concerned for you at the moment.
Yeah. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So when you mentioned it kind of early, you touched on it earlier, but when you reach out to big guests like Shaq, what's your approach? Like, what are some tips for reaching out to those big time guests?
So that one was just through my network. Ended up just being like a guy that I knew that ran a charity, and they were doing this kind of charity auction thing. And I got involved with the charity a little bit, and then my name got put in an auction somehow with getting like a 5-minute FaceTime call with Shaq. And so I ended up winning that. I got on a call with him, and then kind of leveraged into like a 20-minute podcast interview. So, but it was cool because he ended up following me on Instagram, and then like we've kind of messaged a little bit on Instagram and stuff. So he wasn't just like a flash in the pan. Hopefully we'll be able to do something bigger the next time we're able to link up. But yeah, that just came from like being in the space for a really long time and having a lot more connections to other people who are connected to other people,
Yeah. What about other guests like Shaq, like notable guests like him that you've chatted
Dude,
with?
you'd be surprised how many people will respond to DMs. A lot of people don't respond to DMs as well. So that's the problem. That's the problem, dude, is like most people just aren't willing to put in the work and get a big enough sample size before they make a decision on a method. So they'll be like, oh, let me DM some people, and they'll DM 3 people, and none of them they get back to them. And they're like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. It's like, well, I don't know how many people I've DM'd over the years asking for podcast interviews, but it's into the hundreds for sure. And what I don't know what the response rate would be, but if I had to guess, it's probably under 25%. And that's with as much work as I've already done, and that's with the show that I already have, with as many guests I've already brought on. After my following's grown a little bit, after my online credibility looks a little bit better, like all of that, like this is after all of that, and it still is like not 100% response rate. So when you're first starting out, it can be discouraging, but it's just kind of part of the process. I come from a door-to-door sales background, so it just, to me, rejection is just a part of anything that you're going to do. If you want to have success in anything that's like abnormal, rejection is just going to be part of it, and you're going to have to deal with it, figure out a way to move past it, and still continue to make the asks without letting it get you down. So a lot of it, dude, like DMs, personal connections, introductions, tweets, cold email, whatever methods or tools are at my disposal, I use them.
So you're really like the Buddycast. You're really just like what I do with Buddycast. Go just shoot your shot, send them a message, and worst they can do is say no. Like worst they can do is, like, and I've had that. I've had just like you, as many of I've had Sinbad, Stephen Tobolowsky, John Mahon from the Elton John Band, Dougie Doug from Cool Runnings, Sean Kenyon from the Karate Kid. Every one of them just came from something, just a simple ask. Like everyone thinks we have like this secret formula that we do. Like, oh, if you donate $25 and then you reach out to this person and then you go through here, you go to that. It's really just simply asking,
Yep. And asking consistently and staying persistent too. Sometimes, like, some people that have taken like 11 months to schedule with me. So trying to figure out a way to be persistent without being annoying, like there's some things like that you just get better at over time. It's just, you got to risk the initial embarrassment. And most people just aren't willing to risk the initial embarrassment.
Oh, I've gotten put into my place before. I've gotten emails from a celebrity from his people saying, look, he's here, you're here. Where do you think this is going to meet?
Right. Exactly. But, if you do that enough times, somebody says yes.
Exactly.
And like I've always found, if like the first yes is always the hardest. The second yes is easier to get after the first yes. Like since Shaq came on my show, it's been easier to get people who know who Shaq is, because everybody knows who Shaq is. So it's always like, oh, well, you must be some level of credible if you've had somebody like that, say, or like with Dane Cook, it's like, oh, you've interviewed Dane Cook, you must be like at least decent at this. You wouldn't be able to get time with these people. You know what I mean? So the first yes is always the most difficult yes, but it gets easier after that.
And you're exactly right. That's what I use with my approach. Like when I approach these, when I approach people, I'm like, just to state our credibility, just to show we're not just some mom and pop podcast reaching for the stars here. Here's who I've chatted with in the past. Here's who I've dealt with. And I can show you their testimonies. I've got a personal video from Sinbad saying how much fun he had on the show.
Yep, exactly.
Things like that. But speaking of which, what do you think of Buddycast?
Yeah, it's great, dude. I mean, I'm pretty easy to please on these things, man. Like, just like if you like doing the show and your audience loves the content you're putting out, then like keep doing your thing, man. Keep doing your thing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I got two more questions for you for today. The first one is brought to us by my buddy Jonas Kane at #positivity. He wants to know, in your own words, what does it mean to be someone's buddy?
That's a good question. To be a buddy to somebody, I feel you might feel differently. I feel like the word buddy to me is almost a little bit more casual than like a friend. So to be someone's buddy is just gotta be somebody that you know, somebody that you're willing to help in a pinch, somebody that you have given value to / received value from. Buddies tend to be reciprocal relationships. And I think you can have a lot of buddies. I don't think you can have a ton of friends, like close friends. I think like that's kind of, you're going to run out of people, and there's only so many people that you want to go that deep with. But, how many buddies you have is just dependent on how often you're going out and meeting people. And, if you share any common interests with them and have common value that you can receive and give to each other, but they tend to be reciprocal. And I think you have a lot of them.
Exactly. And my final question to you tonight is what we call the ultimate Buddycast buddy question, which is, what is your advice to anyone out there who wants to start their own podcast, who wants to start their own show, take off their own dream?
Just get started. It's less elusive than you think it is. The most difficult thing is just starting. If I were to give like a further piece of advice, it would be most podcasts will never make it past episode 7, I believe. But let's just say episode 10. So get started recording and record a minimum of 10 episodes before you launch. So that way you will already be more successful than everybody else before you even hit the launch button.
Wow. Awesome. Well, buddy, thank you for being a buddy here on Buddycast. I actually really like that advice, getting past episode 7. You know, for me, it kind of just felt like a breeze. Like it was just reaching out to people. Before I knew it, I had like 10 interviews lined up. So
yep. You'd be surprised how easy it is to book interviews if you just get started, but you got to get started.
Exactly. Put one foot in front of the other. Soon you'll be walking out the door.
That's right. Yes, sir.
All righty. Well, Travis, thank you for taking your time. Thank you for being a buddy here on Buddycast. Much appreciated.
Hey, I appreciate the patience with the smoke alarm going off in the background, bro. It's never
Not
happened
a problem.
before. Especially not on a live show, so I apologize.
We've had much. I've had much worse. I've had people who have lost connection on the show. I've had people who have just like completely gotten sidetracked with something and then realized, oh yeah, I was doing an interview 10 seconds ago, you know?
Yeah.
Something like that, where I've been sitting here stalled like, okay, so we just got this little situation going on. We'll be right back after these messages. And then just playing every sponsorship message that I have pretty much,
Right,
you know?
right.
So not a problem at all. But Travis, before we end today, I have one favor to ask you. Whatever you do today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, promise me you're going to go out and you're going to go be someone's buddy.
Absolutely, dude. That's all I do.
Awesome. For my buddies out there, this is my buddy, Travis Chappell. Please, if you're looking to start your own podcast, you're looking for some really cool guests, check out Castillo. It's worth your time. Trust me, I'm on Castillo. It's a lovely place. Like I said, I'm your host, Nick Sorensen. Thank you for joining us on everybody's favorite show.
Well, the days are going fast, buddy, we've got to make them last, buddy, before they've all gone past, buddy, tune in to Buddycast. No, don't be none, it can make it, buddy, here on Buddycast.